Welcome to the TMB Women in Business podcast, created for the aspiring CEO. Every week, we provide you with tips on all things business and entrepreneurship. You'll hear from industry leaders on topics such as marketing, business growth, and branding. This podcast is hosted by Mahi Kolla, the 16-year-old teen entrepreneur behind the Minty Boutique, a luxe stationery company with a mission to change the world. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the TMB Women in Business podcast. Today, we will be interviewing Kaitlyn Parker. Kaitlyn is the owner, copywriter, and wine enthusiast behind Copy Uncorked, a boutique copywriting studio pouring up high-converting words and digital strategies for modern brands and creative entrepreneurs. She holds a master's in strategic communications and is a certified copywriter by Digital Marketer. She's also a student of Copy School and 10x copywriter by Copy Hackers. I'm so excited for you to listen in on our conversation today. If you'd like to receive an email recap of the episode, sign up for our email list at tiny.cc/TMBWIBEMAIL or tiny.cc/TMBWIBemail. All right, let's jump into it. Hi, Kaitlyn. Welcome to the TMB Women in Business podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Before we get started with the interview, I would love to just have you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you're currently working on.
Yeah, so my name's Kaitlyn, and my company is called Copy Uncorked. So I am a copywriting and brand strategy studio, and I get to work with all kinds of different brands and creative entrepreneurs and really helping them articulate what they do, why they do it, and communicate with their audience in a powerful way. So I do everything from website copy to email marketing and really any other types of little copywriting projects in between.
That's so cool. I would love to know, how did you first get started doing copywriting and creating this agency?
Yeah, so I was someone who had started blogging like a long time ago. Like I always kind of say like blogging before it was cool because I feel like today a lot of people have blogs and it's great, but I feel like when I first started it was kind of one of those weird things like, wait, what, you have a blog? So I did that for a while, and then I ended up going to grad school for strategic communications, and I always knew I loved writing and reading, and I kind of fell into copywriting. I just had been blogging and enjoying it and reached a point where I was like, I'd really love to get paid to write. So I started putting myself out there in things like Facebook groups. And I started my business really out of my blog website. And then I started working on a few projects. And then through grad school, as I kind of started learning a little bit more about the actual discipline of copywriting, and then of course focused a lot of attention on different certifications and stuff within that field. But it definitely just came from a love of writing and really being in the work with clients, and realizing areas that I could help them, and realizing how many people, especially moving into like a digital age where there is so much online marketing, really how many people need it, was super encouraging, and definitely gave me the confidence to move forward with it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you kind of touched on this, but I'd love to know, what inspired you to keep growing and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been in a few different jobs since I graduated in college. I was in sales, and then I worked for a company called Lululemon Athletica, which you've probably heard of. But I loved their brand, and it was really inspiring, and they just did such an incredible job of branding in general. So I learned a ton while I was there, and I've always just had a lot of different interests. I've been a super multi-passionate person, and I love that through this I get to work with a lot of different entrepreneurs in different fields, like different areas. So I don't feel like I'm ever doing, even though I have, the same processes and I do a lot of the same stuff over and over. It's really exciting to get on the phone with people, hear everything that they're trying to bring to life, and really kind of be there to support them and help like distill and extract the core message that they're trying to communicate. And I just love helping other people launch and really kick off their business and feel confident in it. I think sometimes when we feel like it's all up in our heads and we can't articulate what we feel and like what we feel fired us up to get started in the first place. So that's kind of one of my favorite things. I always like to say I love helping my clients breathe new life into their words and get really excited about it. So for me, it's just seeing what the power of words and having a really strong message allows entrepreneurs to do. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I One thing that I found is even though it is your job, just being able to help someone and like be there with them while they're doing their launch or starting their company is really helpful on the entrepreneur side as well, because you have someone that has done it before and that has the experience, but also it's just having the ability to be able to go someone to talk to and ask someone for help that a
Yeah.
lot of people are hesitant to do because they just feel like they need to do everything, but it's okay to ask for help, and just there are people who you can hire or you can just talk to, and people in like Facebook groups and things like that that you can just talk to, and they're so happy to help you with your launch, give feedback on your product or anything like that. So I think it's also really important to just reach out and see what other people are doing and reach out, make those connections so you build that community around you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's something that I feel like I've definitely learned. I've had my business for about 2.5 years now, and I just recently rebranded it this spring. But I, through going through the rebrand, I really challenged myself to try to reach out to people a lot more and just kind of share with people what I was working on, get their opinion about the new brand name, about the colors, about the way that I was refining my services. And it was so much more rewarding to launch and have like that support and encouragement of people around me, because I feel like they also had the chance to feel involved. And in the past, I just felt like I needed to, have this perfect finished product to bring to the table. And I put so
Hmm.
much work into it, whether it was like redoing my website or just publishing a blog post or, wanting to create some sort of a free resource. And then I would launch it. And I think like a lot of early entrepreneurs, you experience that bit of crickets where you put
Hmm.
something out there,
Yeah.
you're feeling a little bit vulnerable, and then it's like okay and nothing. And what really
Yeah.
helps that is when you do reach out to people and you seek out mentors, and you're not afraid to share with your peers and not necessarily see people as like competition, but just creating relationships. And it's amazing how much more people are likely to want to be a cheerleader for you when they feel like they've been a part of it. So I couldn't agree more and think it's really important, and it makes your job so much more fun when you start doing that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you just mentioned how people are more invested in your product and they want to support you when they've
Mhm.
been a part of the process. And I think people now are becoming much more vulnerable and open on platforms like Instagram. And especially because of Instagram stories, the feed is very much curated and it's pictures that we've taken on
Right.
fancy cameras and we've edited and put filters on, but the stories is just kind of, it's like Snapchat. It's just you take it and then you post it and it's gone. um
Mhm.
because of the stories feature, I think people have really been able to show more of the behind the scenes and show parts of the business that aren't pretty and that their struggles more, and customers can see that and they become so much more invested in not only the product but the person behind it who's doing the work to develop the product, test it, do all this work that goes into a single launch that a lot of people didn't know actually happened. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the great reasons, like I love Instagram stories. I love just telling people about things that aren't even related to my business. Like this morning I posted um, a picture of just what was it? Oh, it was my breakfast, and I
Me
just
too.
like it. It was very simple, but I was something a new recipe that I tried, and I wanted to share it and see if like anyone was interested. And I got a few messages already, just saying like, "Oh, I've tried that in the past. Here, like other things you can do to make it taste even better." And it's just that personal connection that from such a
Mhm.
simple thing in our day to day lives, you can build and build a story behind the brand.
Definitely. And I mean, really, brands are human. And I think, there's this whole creative world where there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are are building teams, but maybe they're solo, at the onset. And
Mhm.
my brand personally is definitely one that I strive to have more of a professional approach, but that doesn't mean that I also want people to see that I'm human and to feel personally
Yeah.
connected to me, and that it's not just all templates and curated. And it can be challenging when you're a perfectionist and you really do want to put like a strong brand out there. But thankfully, like you mentioned, there are so many different, not just different mediums, but different formats like within those mediums, like the difference between your feed and stories, and using
Mhm.
something like an email list to have more private conversations with your audience. Or like this morning, for example, I'm working on a new digital product and I was going to post something to my Instagram about it, but I was like, you know what? I really want to nurture the subscribers that I have. So I try to make sure that if I'm sending out a new update, that the email subscribers are the first ones to get it. And
Mhm.
maybe if I'm sharing a tip or something on Instagram, I add a little bit more of a personal story to it via email. So just kind of
Yeah.
seeing all the different channels that you have and how you can use them slightly differently to tailor that experience to your audience and who's following you, while still showing a little bit of that human and professional side.
Yeah, I completely agree. For me, because we're a product-based company, I've always had my feed be always focused on the product more than me.
Yeah.
Just because like I am really young and my parents were hesitant in like showing my face and showing,
Hmm.
my name and all that online until very recently. But in the past, I've always just wanted my posts and what I'm sharing on social media to be focused on the products that I'm creating. But
Hmm.
because recently, because I mean, Instagram stories has been up for how many years? I think like 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, it's got to be at least that. I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah, but it's very recent, like compared to how long Instagram has
Yeah,
been up and
for
people have
sure.
been using it. And so I think that because Instagram stories has come, people are being more vulnerable, and that's really exciting to see. I also like recently Instagram put out that article that they might potentially just take out likes and just remove that. So
Oh,
it's more focused on personal connection
mhm.
versus how many likes you're getting or how much engagement you're getting. And
Yeah,
I love that because that also gives uh evens the playing field for small businesses, that it takes a while for businesses like us to reach the 100K following or like
right.
1 million followers. That's
Yeah,
gonna take a while, but if you take out the followers, people are gonna be more interested in what are you actually sharing versus what how many followers you have and if it's like cool to follow you.
yeah, definitely. And Instagram is a very visual medium. So I feel like on some
Hmm.
level, part of it is human nature. We're all short on time, we're scrolling. So a lot of it is going to be what first captures your eyes, captures your attention
Yeah.
visually. And then it's, what are we putting in the caption to either provide value or to create a connection? And like you just mentioned, your business has been product based for a long time, but then as an entrepreneur yourself, you've been able to also bring something like this podcast that allows people to kind of get a little bit more of the behind the scenes while still maintaining your really product forward brand. Because even though we have all been able to formulate these connections and share a little bit more of ourselves, I think at the end of the day it's also really important that we're remembering like the reason that we're creating these products or services are to
Hmm.
serve our audience. So we
Yeah.
never want to like put ourselves in the middle of that, when really we're the guide. We're helping them either get to the services that they need to achieve their own goals, or we're trying to get them the products that they need to enrich their life, to make them more organized, whatever it is. So I love that we can kind of have, again, the different avenues to share parts of ourselves and really use the medium or a channel in the way that kind of best serves our audience and allows us to yeah, just really show what we have to offer.
Yeah, I completely agree. And going back to what you mentioned about your email list, I would love to know. It's hard at the very beginning when you're first starting your company to know which social media platform you should invest your time in because it's really hard to do all of it. And even now, we have a YouTube channel, Instagram, and then like Instagram stories and IGTV. Plus, we
Mhm.
have a Facebook page and a Facebook group, and all of that,
Yeah,
even 4 years into it, is so hard to manage. And
it
I've had
is.
to take people on to help me with it. Oh, and our email list too, when we have sales and things. And so,
Uh-huh.
all of these different things, it's hard to take on at the very beginning because you feel like you have to be posting constantly to get a following and get people to subscribe and engage with you. I
Mhm.
would love to know, how did you first decide which platform was best for you and how you grew from there?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I had my personal Instagram account, which I would blog from, and that I originally kind of started offering services through. And
Mm-hmm.
I got to the point where I felt like, again, because I'm such a multi passionate person, I felt like I was sharing about all kinds of stuff and my message
Mm-hmm.
wasn't clear. So there are some people who are really great at having a lifestyle brand and, intermixing both business and personal. But for me, I felt like my content was very distinct from what I wanted to be sharing on my personal Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And copywriting is just all about like clarity. So it was super important to me that I created a second account and really focused on the copywriting side of things. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted it to be a very educational and value driven account. So I started on Instagram. I, of course, created a Facebook page with it, my website. I am on LinkedIn, Pinterest, just because I love it, and all kinds of, brand inspiration on there. And then I share any blog posts and stuff. And then my email list, I really try to just think of it all almost in like a sort of content life cycle. Like if we're going around a circle, it's kind of hard to explain. But if we're starting at the top of the circle, like, and I create a piece of content, so maybe that piece of content is a blog post, and then I know I want to send that out to my email list. I know I want to share it across my social media channels, and then maybe I want to revisit it a week or so later, or maybe that blog post got really good feedback. So maybe I want to create some sort of deeper resource out of it. So I try to think of like, what is the purpose of this content versus just sharing to share, and then how can I also repurpose it in different ways so that we're not spending so much time and energy into something that gets posted once and then we forget about it. So I think, we want to be on all the channels and do all the things, but it's important to figure out what can we show up on consistently and what can we show up on with, a decent level of quality. And you may be on multiple platforms, but I know for me, I really do pour most of my energy into Instagram and my email list. So, if people are following on LinkedIn or Facebook, I do put the same content up there so that people on those platforms can also potentially be introduced to the brand. But again, I really just try to think of how can this all flow together and create a process where I'm not getting overwhelmed with where it all needs to go. But all right, this is where we're starting, and then this is how my content like drips out and disperses across all the different channels.
Yeah, I love the idea of the circle and how you kind of just go around the circle and share the same content, but in a different way. So you don't have to constantly be creating content. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize is when you share, we spend so much time creating like a YouTube video. There's so much time that goes
Yeah.
into writing the script, filming, editing, creating the thumbnail, doing all of that. And if you forget to spend the time to actually market it and get people
Mhm.
to the YouTube video, then all of your work will be in vain except for the few people that did watch it. And I mean,
Right.
of course, I'm sure those few people like learned a lot and they got a lot of value out of it, but if you are spending all this time making it, it's worth spending the same time getting people to it so they can actually appreciate what you've spent so much time doing. And I love what you said about how you can just repurpose it. And that's also something that seems kind of like a taboo, a big no no. You can't just repurpose it. But a lot of times, the same message can be said multiple ways, and people sometimes it doesn't stick the first time. You say it a different way, then it hits them. On
Mhm.
different social media platforms, you also have different followings. There, yeah, of course, there will be the same a few followers that are very loyal. They follow you on YouTube and on Instagram and Facebook,
Right.
and they might hear it again, but a lot of times you have different followers on each one, and you can share the same topic that you have, written a beautiful long caption for on Instagram as a Facebook post, and you will be
Mhm.
reaching a new audience, but you don't have to do double the work.
Definitely. And I think I used to, for so long, I was really afraid to share something more than once. I think a lot of us have that
Yeah.
feeling, oh, we're gonna like annoy our followers, or they saw it the first time, they weren't interested, so there's no point in me sending it out again. But I think at this point we are starting to realize that that's just not true, and we do have things like algorithms, and such a small percentage of our following or our audience that
Yeah.
is seeing the content. And if we really believe that what we created is important and offering value, then share it, share it multiple times and in different ways, and don't be afraid to do that. And there's plenty of statistics out there that will tell you, the number of touch points that actually create a conversion. And you're not really supposed to use yourself as an example when assessing different marketing or
Mhm.
advertising tactics. But I know for me, sometimes I'll see something and I'm interested, but I'm maybe in the middle of something else, or my
Yeah.
inbox is super full at the time, so I kind of forget about it. But then I see it again and I am more enticed. And it's all about moving somebody further through that stage of awareness. So they may see it the first time and not actually click over, but maybe you present it in a slightly different way, or something else that you say actually entices them a little bit more this time. So they do land on the blog page and they read through it. And somebody doing that one time is great. They've created a connection with your brand. Maybe the next time they subscribe to your email list. So it's really looking at it in a positive light and feeling like if you have a message that you're excited about and you want to share, people are going to get something out of it. So there's no reason why you should feel, yeah, like you can't share it more than once.
Yeah, and I believe it's about 7 different touch points that before people are like fully convinced to click the link, and that's a lot of different touch points. Just imagine how many Instagram posts you'd have to make for the same group of people to see that message 7 different times. So
Right.
of course, like I'm not saying flood all your or spam your account with tons of Instagram posts every day, because that will get annoying and people will unfollow you. But I
Right,
would
right.
say, use your different channels. Use your YouTube to, let's say you're doing a launch. I always use this example of, if you're doing a product launch or a service launch, when you do that launch, you want to tell them about it from on your launch day, from your email list to your YouTube, Instagram, everything. Just tell them on every channel and let them see it on all these different channels. But
Mhm.
then something that a lot of people do is they forget to keep marketing it. And you kind of touched on that you don't want to keep telling them, it could be annoying. But
Mhm.
people forget so easily, especially when they're just scrolling through Instagram. You're just scrolling. Sometimes you like things, like I like things and I don't even read them or really look at the picture. I'm just kind of liking as I go. And
Mhm.
if you forget to tell them, continue telling them about your new course or your new product over the weeks to come, they will forget about it and they will not like be more enticed to go back. But if they see your product, you know, every day or every few days, when they open up Instagram, they see, oh yeah, didn't she just launch that new course or launch that new product? Like, oh,
Right.
I'm thinking about it. Let me go check it out. And that could happen a week later or even 2 weeks later. But because you were still showing up and you were still willing to put the time in to show up again and again, even if the first day you get zero sales, just a few visitors to your website, if you keep showing up, I promise there will be people who were enticed at the when they first saw it, but then after a week they made the leap to actually purchase or at least click onto your website.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there's a lot of people creating a lot of different things, launching a lot of different businesses, products, services, and it's great. And I think a lot of us are also wanting to kind of sit back, subconsciously almost, but sit back and see, okay, how long is this going to last? Is this person
Mhm.
really sticking this out? Are they really going for it? And
Mhm.
a quote that's always stuck with me is belief has a sound. And I think the more that you decide to keep showing up, even if you look at your Google Analytics and you're like, oh my gosh, like 3 people read this blog post and 2 of them were my mom. Like you can't expect people to go flocking to your blog or your YouTube channel if you've posted one video. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
keep showing up and show your audience how much you believe in what you're doing, and they're going to hear that and they're going to see it and they're going to come and they're going to follow suit. So, a lot of
Yeah.
content marketing, content creation is about authority building, credibility, and consistency is even a tactic used in one of my favorite books. It's called Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's just great for understanding the power of persuasion, but he just talks about how consistency is something that just in a form of human decision making, it just really resonates. It's like an unspoken language almost. When you see someone being consistent, whether it's with their content marketing or whether it's with their fitness routine, there is a level of respect and attention that
Mm-hmm.
comes from that. And you really do just create an opportunity for yourself to have a platform. And I'm not talking about a stage or 100,000 Instagram followers. I'm just talking about having a message worth listening to. And I think
Yeah.
the more that you share it in a way that honors what your audience's needs are, and you share it consistently, and you're willing to put yourself out there for it, you're gonna see results.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that people love listening to people that are excited about what they do is because you can hear the passion and the persistence in their voice when they're talking. You can hear how excited they are about whatever they're working on. It could really be any hobby, but because you hear that passion, you're more enticed to continue listening and hear them out and um, invest that time in them and believe in whatever they're doing. So I definitely believe that you need to have that passion in whatever you're doing, even if it's just a launch. Even if it's just posting an Instagram photo, you need to show that passion for what you're doing and everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think passion is just one of those things that is so important, and it's another word that we hear a lot, but is something that
Hmm.
we can all do a really great job of showing as much as we say it. And I think when you are, for example, launching something and you don't just post one time to your Instagram and just sit back and wait for, the comments and the likes and all the attention to roll in, and you hop on your story, and even if you're afraid of video, you jump in and you share why you're
Hmm.
excited about it. And you do it in multiple different mediums, or you text individual people in your circle or in your industry and tell them about it. Like, again, it just is one of those invitations that allows other people to get on board. I think by putting energy into work that you're doing, you elevate people around you, and you create space and the ability for them to be more excited about what they're doing too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also jumping from this, I also wanted to talk about how you first kind of got started and the different procedures and processes that you set up from the beginning. That's something that I learned kind of the hard way. At the very beginning, I was just doing things the way I thought best. And
Yeah.
later, looking back, I wish I had set up the processes and the right people to take care of things that I wasn't sure about. So I'd love for you to just go into that.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's kind of an area that in retrospect I feel like I got like the luckiest with. In
Mm-hmm.
thinking back to just really wanting to start up my LLC, I worked with a lawyer at my church at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
he was great and just kind of guiding me, and put this big binder of all these legal documents in front of me that I really was not even sure about at the time. But for me, the LLC was something that I felt like I needed to be confident to go promote my services and to feel legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you can offer a service to somebody and you can be confident from day one. But for me, it was just having that legality and that setup. I just wanted it to be right from the get go. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that I did that, even though, you know, I still am just like, I don't know what made me jump out and want to start my LLC, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that I did. And then with that, I, had talked to my attorney a little bit about how it was important to separate personal and business finances. So I did open up a business bank account, which was kind of scary at the time, and hearing all of the different things that go into that. But it does make such a difference when You can look back at everything. You can track where your income is coming from, where it's going out. Using something like a CRM system, especially as a solopreneur or somebody who's starting off early, like you want to lean on tools and systems and processes that allow you to put most of your time and energy into working on your business and creating new revenue opportunities. And neglecting those things, it's only going to get harder later. And I know sometimes it's confusing because there's so much that you don't know and you're just so focused on like creating the service or your minimum viable product or whatever it is. But
Mm-hmm.
if you know, like I've been thinking about starting a business for weeks or months or however long, and you have the passion and the enthusiasm for it, go get the LLC, open the CRM program, like do what you need to kind of put yourself in a position where you feel like you can hang that digital sign on your door and say, I'm open for business, because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be worth it. And you'll look back and you'll feel really confident in what you've created for yourself. And as you grow, and like you mentioned, in the success and the growth of your own business, you've been able to bring people on board to help you in different areas. And the more that you create as much of a system or a process as you can from day one, the easier it is for you to grow and scale more quickly.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing that I learned was when we are creating our products at the beginning, as I said, I was just doing it the way I knew, and it was like a very specific way. And when I had to hire someone to help me with orders and help me with the shop tasks in general, it was
Mhm.
so hard to explain to them because they
Yeah,
hadn't been doing it for this many years. They hadn't been there when, like, we had to make this slight tweak that to the printer that no one knows about, but I do. And you have to, like, even for, like, let's just
for
take an
sure.
example of like car keys, you have to just shake it this way and then it'll open, things like that. Those are the little things that no one knows until you've been working in that business or that company for a while. And if from the very beginning you can start documenting what you're doing, it will be so much easier when you hire someone, when you bring someone onto your team, to just hand them the piece of paper or whatever you were writing on and be like, here's what I do and here's how it works. If you could just follow these steps, then it will work for you too. And eventually they will also kind of figure out how to do it themselves, and they might add their own little tweaks. But because they had that baseline that you trust them, here's the process I follow. If you do this, I know that you will get like a good product that I trust you with, then you will be much more like sane. You won't be double checking everything they do because you have a process that they can follow that you trust.
Yeah, definitely. And then when you do bring people in and there's a clear process, if they're able to identify better ways of doing something, then
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Like more power to it. You can move forward with something like that rather than feeling like you're starting from the beginning and you're both trying to create any sort of process at all. So yeah, I totally agree. It makes a difference, and it's only going to benefit you yourself as the business owner to be able to do that.
Yeah, and when you're first starting out, have found, and I at the very beginning, at that point, I was 12 years old. So
So
I
amazing.
just kind of started and I didn't know what
Yeah.
I was doing, but because I was like a product based business, I didn't have to immediately set up a bank account and stuff. And I was selling on Etsy. So I had the platform. But I found now that I started, for example, my podcast and the nonprofit that this podcast falls under, that was a completely new venture for me, and I didn't know what to do. And it can be really overwhelming, especially because a nonprofit has like all these legality issues that you have
Yeah.
to file for and go through that process. And if don't get overwhelmed, because I know there are, like, even for like an LLC, there are so many forms that go into it and you have to be completely sure about who has power and who has all this. Don't
Hmm.
be overwhelmed. That's the first thing I can say to whoever's listening. Do not be overwhelmed. There are people out there who will help you, even if it's paid, but also people who are just willing to do it because you have built that relationship with them and they want to help you. And that's going back to building the community around you. And
Yeah.
we've talked about that in a few previous episodes, but just the idea that it's more important to build true connections than always be focused on like making that sale. Because when you're starting a new venture like I knew people in the industry who had started nonprofits, and I was able to just contact them and say, hey, like, how do I do this? And they referred me to the lawyers they were using and the people that were filing all of their documents and things for their nonprofit. And now I can work with them directly and I have that connection.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's a big step of courage sometimes, but it's really comes down to simply just being willing to say, this is what I'm trying to do and this is what I need to get there. And it is amazing how willing people are to help and not only help, but how then a lot of times you may even get your first client out of just
Mm-hmm.
simply sharing about it and somebody saying, "Oh my gosh, I know somebody who needs exactly what you're trying to
Yeah.
accomplish and what you're trying to offer."
And I think a lot of people don't realize how willing people are to help each other. We always are thinking very transactionally, like, okay, so if I can help you with this, will you help me with this? But a lot of times I realized, especially in like the entrepreneur and small business world, a lot of people are willing to help you for free just because they've been there, they know that struggle themselves, and they want to help the next generation of entrepreneurs to do better and to not make those mistakes and spend more time adding value rather than cleaning up mistakes that they could give you advice about. So I would just say, just ask. The worst they can say is no, I that's information I can't share, and that's fine. I mean, you have to respect that and just ask someone else, or do that research and try to find it for yourself. But a lot of times you will get yeses and they will help you and it'll be so much better for your business.
Yeah, definitely. Be willing to, ask for help, value people's expertise and don't be afraid to put in the work even when it feels scary and overwhelming. And there's plenty of stuff that I haven't done yet in my own business that I'm excited about doing, and I'm working on my first mini course, and every time that you want to try something new, there's going to be a little bit of a hurdle. Like there's going to be that learning
Hmm.
gap, but you just have to be willing to close it and realize how much progress that you're going to make and how much more confident and just excited about your business you're going to feel on the other side of it. So just not letting like the technicalities or legalities, whatever it is, get in the way, because it's worth it. It really is. And you just kind of have to stay a learner.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have any other tips or last words before we finish up the interview?
Um, I think just kind of what we were going off of, like, just really not listening to that imposter syndrome that's so easy
Mm-hmm.
when you're always going to look out there and there's going to be somebody more qualified and there's going to be somebody less qualified. But there's something, again, that fired you up to start your business, and you
Mm-hmm.
bring a unique perspective to it and a different way of doing something. So sometimes you just have to have blinders to the competition and really not pay
Mm-hmm.
attention so much to what other people are doing. And every time you want to write something or create a new product, feel the need to compare it against 50 other people's, there is something to be said for competitive research, but just be confident in what you have to offer. And again, just, yeah, run your business with blinders on and believe in what you have to offer.
Yeah, and also take the time to figure out what fired you up and hold on to that, because that's your purpose, that's your why, and that is what's going to help you keep growing and get through the hard times, because hey, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm taking a risk, and this is why I'm willing to bet on myself.
Yes, couldn't agree more.
All right. So my last few questions, I always ask to all of our interviewees, but what is one word or phrase that you would use to describe your business journey?
Hmm, that is a great and tough question. To describe my business journey, um, I guess winding. Like I feel like I took a lot of different kind of turns and avenues of getting here, but I feel
Hmm.
like ultimately I arrived at where I was trying to get to, but I there wasn't a straight line set out from the beginning, and I've only kind of
Yeah.
been able to get it to the point that I'm at and where how much further I even want to go by just taking steps and taking action. And maybe sometimes you take 2 steps right to then realize you needed to take a step left. But as long as you're okay with a winding journey, like, you're going to keep making progress.
Yeah, I completely agree. My last question is, I would love for listeners to find you and hopefully become customers. So where can they find you online?
Awesome. My website is copyuncorked.com. So you can go on there and see everything that is wine themed about the brand. Or you can also connect with me on Instagram at copyuncorked.
Perfect. And you guys know all the links are always in the show notes or in the episode description. So feel free to check her out there. And I want to say thank you so much, Kaitlyn. I loved our conversation from today, and I hope everyone listening learned something from your business
Thank
journey.
you so much. I really appreciate being on here.
Yay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the TMB Women in Business podcast. Check out our Instagram, where we provide you with the answers to all the questions you have about entrepreneurship. For an email recap of this week's episode, join our email list at tiny.cc/TMBWIBEMAIL. If you want to join a community of like-minded entrepreneurs where I give case-by-case advice to you, join our Facebook group. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen. If you're listening to this episode on our YouTube channel, subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you next week with even more business advice.